Hello and welcome to the Leadership Push podcast. My name is Joshua Clay, and I'm so excited today that I have a very special guest with us. His name is Corey Jack. He's from Mamou, Louisiana, but he's residing near us here in Acadiana. So without further ado, let me just bring on Corey Jack. And then Corey, if you don't mind, just say hello to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, Joshua, thank you so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here speaking with you and in front of the audience. So my name is Corey Jack. I am the owner and principal consultant for Jack & Associates, a consulting firm that assists both for-profit and nonprofit startups. I am also the executive director of Holy Rosary Redevelopment, in charge of redeveloping the historic three-story property in North Lafayette, and wear a couple of other hats within the community with a couple of different volunteer efforts. So a little bit about me. I am an incredibly driven, passionate person. That's what sort of got me here. So my background, I attended UL. I'm originally from Mamou, Louisiana, that big metropolitan city. That is a small town that I come from. So I came to Lafayette in 2005 to attend UL, where I got my undergrad in psychology. And my fascination in my early years, in my teenage years, was with psychology. And Mamou High School didn't have a program that taught it. So I went to school for it. And psychology, I often say, it's my first love. Business came after. So I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. But I was working in retail to get me through college. And I was working at AT&T at the time whenever I was graduating from UL. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm using what I learned in psychology to help sell more phones to make AT&T more money. I was like, I think I can use psychology to sell my own stuff, whatever product or service I would come up with. So I went back and I got my MBA. So rather than pursuing a career in psychology, I went back for business. And I just fell in love with it. And now I'm at a point where I'm able to combine both my love for psychology and my passion for business, and I get the best of both worlds. So that helps with a lot of my nonprofit efforts as well. So that's sort of what got me here doing what I'm doing now.
All right. So I got you. So psychology to business. Yeah. Now, you got to dive a little bit deeper into that. Tell us how the two intertwines and specifically how you see yourself using it on a daily basis, those two worlds.
Yeah. So, psychology, the thought at the time when I was graduating from UL in psychology was that I was going to maybe focus in on marketing or human resources, because I guess that at that time, that's how I seen it being most applicable in the business world. But I just, the person who the counselor, the academic counselors just said, just get your MBA. So that's what I did. But in retrospect, I see like IO, psychology, industrial organizational is probably where the two intertwine the best, which getting a PhD in that is not quite off the table. That is like, I'm okay enough, right? But here's how it helps, especially with Jack & Associates. So Jack & Associates, it's a consulting firm. A lot of people think it's a law firm because of the name, which honestly, at the time, I did that on purpose, just so that you knew up front that it was very professional. Yes. In retrospect, it probably could be a little softer, because people approach me like I'm a lawyer, but it's not. I work with a lot of passionate entrepreneurs. So it's not just people wanting to start a business because the goal is to start a business to grow it and sell it. A lot of the people that I help have some level of passion or purpose attached to their enterprise, especially so about 60% of my clients are social entrepreneurs and they're starting nonprofits, while 40% are starting for-profits, whether it's LLCs or for-profit corporations. But one thing that they seem to have in common is that they're passionate behind what they're doing. Now, because of that, though, many of them are venturing outside of their comfort zone because, working a 9-to-5 job, or that most of them are first-time entrepreneurs. They may not necessarily have a MBA, or they don't come from a long line of entrepreneurs in their family, or they don't have some general manager that can facilitate those day-to-day operations. So they're stepping outside of their comfort zone, right? Doing things outside of their 9-to-5 job, trying to take a leap of faith, but they have to get out of their own head. I had to go through the process. There's a level of imposter syndrome that they have to overcome in order to grow as an entrepreneur. So that's why Jack & Associates is a little bit more, because not only can I talk to you about, okay, You need your documentation with the state. You need to see a CPA. You need your financial statements. It's deeper than that. It's actually helping them along the way so that they can see all this 9 to 5 that you've been doing. There's transferable skills that you can use to transition over into your entrepreneurial endeavor. Don't let your own lack of self-confidence, because you're stepping into a new journey, don't let that stop you. Or whenever someone says, hey, go meet this person, they can help you, or go meet this mentor, that you're not like, well, I just have an idea. Getting past that. The psychology background, along with my own personal experience, allows me to talk to them in such a way to where they can kind of overcome some of the things that's holding them back. So it helps. So the psychology helps there, but also with the nonprofit efforts with the youth in the community too. So it helps be able to speak to the youth and overcome some of their challenges.
Now, you said a couple of things in there, and I want to kind of highlight some of that. So one of the things you talked about was imposter syndrome. I think so many times that affects us, especially in our community. It affects us a lot because we say to ourselves, well, I never saw anybody do it, so I don't see how I can do it, or I really don't belong here, or all these different things that we tell ourselves in our mind. How do you get somebody outside of that thinking to where imposter syndrome has little to no effect on them?
So I hate imposter syndrome, and I hate insecurity like it's a person, like it's a physical, tangible, like enemy, because I've battled with it for so long. I remember being a high school student, being insecure about various things. That crept into my 20s in college, and that crept into early adulthood, insecurities from my childhood, from my youth. And it held me back from doing so much stuff. I remember, so back in 2014, I had like a series of like life-changing events that took place in 2014, things that changed the complete trajectory of my life. My life wasn't turning out the way I envisioned it would be. So it made me basically make the decision that I'm about to go for everything I ever dreamed of, but was just scared to do because life isn't turning out the way I thought it would anyway. So basically, the term like fake it until you make it, or whatever the case may be. What helped with that was that one thing, even in my most insecurest of years, I always knew that there was something inside of me that needed to get out of me. I always knew that there was something inside of me that was bigger than myself, right? So I'm a very spiritual person. That's helped. I follow like T-Bakes Ministry. I follow a whole bunch of inspirational moguls and things like that. And what helped me is listening to that stuff for over a decade, that when 2014 hit that rough year, I took all that information that I had in my backpack, but never applied it. It took a rough year. It took rough circumstances. It took a horrible job. It took a long relationship ending. It took a very painful season for me to utilize all that stuff that I've been hearing that ultimately helped me get over that imposter syndrome. A couple of things speak into that. So number one, I believe that the ability, the talent, the experiences that I've had was God given to me. So I started to realize that on my own, I don't know how I'm going to become what it is that I envision, but I know I'll get there because it's bigger than me and I was assigned to this path and this mission. It's going to happen. I heard one speaker say something like, imagine you're a spouse and you buy your significant other this precious gift that you knew that they would enjoy and that would help them. And you're excited to give it to them. And they come home and you place it on the table and you say, honey, I got a gift for you. I put a lot of thought and energy into it. And them simply saying, oh, okay, I'll get to it later. And days go by and they never open it. And I started thinking, what if that's God giving us the ability to do something, to leave an imprint on this world, and we never open it? And I started to realize that my insecurity, which led to my imposter syndrome, is an insult to the gifts and abilities that God gave me to leave an impression on this world. So I just started believing in that. Step number one. Step number two, the word failure. I had to redefine that word. I met with 3 CEOs last week of successful companies. Every mogul that I follow on a national level, they all say the same thing when it comes to word failure. It's a necessary part of the process. If you fear failure, you'll never get to where you're going. It's part of the learning experience. In fact, if you fail, you probably reached some limit that you need to push through. And the fact that you failed suggests that you're close. So you just need to go back more wiser now. So I stopped fearing failure. And every time I failed, I went and attacked it from a different angle with a new strategy until I just started breaking through. I mean, we can go on and on about that topic. But I would say that those are a few things.
So let me just put myself in a position of somebody, because I could just hear somebody saying this. Well, Corey, you don't know my story. You know, Corey, you don't know all the stuff I've been through. You don't know how many times I walked in front of somebody and they told me no. You don't know. I just come from the wrong place. I was born at the wrong time. My family has never made it. I just don't see it outside of this. What would you say to that person, Corey?
Right. So this is what I say too. So I have mentors and people. That's why I love using other people's stories as well, because I've been through some rough things. But my rough things is, you know, growing up from a single mother, from a small town, the relationship that I mentioned in 2014 that ended, a couple of things, right? It's rough. But I've met people. There's 2 people last year that I've met that they've had 3 repossessions. They had 2 homes going to foreclosure. I had people that had horrible things happen to them in their childhood, but they made it. They ended up making it. And they tell me their story with tears falling down their cheeks. But they made it. They overcome the repossessions. They've overcome divorce. They've overcome abandonment in their childhood. They made it. So I'm able to share their stories too. Even if your story, I can talk to someone who was very broke. I can talk to someone who's battled insecurity throughout most of their childhood and young adult life. I can talk to someone who broke up with significant other a few months before the wedding. I can talk to those people from personal experience, right? But there's some things I can't talk about because I never experienced it. But I know people who have. Yeah. And I'm friends with them and I'm connected. So even if your story don't look like mine, I know people who might be where you aspire to get to that shares your story, or maybe even had a tougher situation, but they're proof positive that there is hope and that there is a way.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that's so good. And you're making me think about a Facebook post. Well, actually a hashtag that you always use. You always use death to comfort zones. Absolutely. Is that where some of that came from? Some of the life experiences that you had?
Yes, absolutely. Death to comfort zones. And there's more coming from that. The hashtag, I actually just trademarked it.
Okay.
So we're building a movement, that we're building a brand, but it's a constant day-to-day reminder that I have to get past my comfort zone, because whatever it is that I was put here to do, I cannot do from a place of comfort. I realize that anytime you ask or pray for growth or change, some disruption is coming. It's part of the process. Not to get distracted by the disruption, right? Overcoming the disruption isn't even where the victory is. The disruption comes to facilitate the change and to usher you into the next level of your life. So you can't get there if you stay comfortable, if you let your insecurities box you in, if you suffer from an imposter syndrome. Death to comfort zones is about placing yourself in certain situations where you have no choice but to adapt and evolve and to grow. It's one of the reasons why I travel so often. I go to take in beautiful scenery, but I want to put myself in environments that I'm not familiar with, so that I can adapt to something that doesn't look like Mamou, Louisiana, that doesn't look like Lafayette, Louisiana. Yeah. Exposure. I'm exposed to something different. I'm exposed to how young millennials do business in LA or in Michigan or Atlanta or New York. And I'm like, oh, that's how it's done out here. I'm not comfortable doing this way, but I'm going to learn from you, and I'm going to bring it back to Lafayette, Louisiana. So that's what the comfort zones are. It is about really just pushing yourself beyond your normal.
Yeah, I've often heard this quote: exposure leads to expansion. Absolutely. And to me, that sounds exactly like what you're doing and actually walking in every single day of your life. And I can appreciate that. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, Who are the people in your life that inspires you?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. So, first of all, I'm the best mother in the world. I love my mom. So, anytime I get like an award or recognized for something, I always have the honor of having her there with me at my table, and always acknowledge that whatever I'm being recognized for is simply being the man that she raised me to be. So my mom, hands down, right? But next, I have three best friends in this world, two of which I've been best friends with since second or third grade. And I'm grateful because I realized to have friends that close for that long, it's a blessing. And I have another good friend of mine. She lives in Austin, Texas, but she's from here. Two of those three, well, they challenge me and they push me. They're my biggest fans, but people who know me in public think, oh, you're great, you're kind, you're empathetic, you're great. But they're so close to me that they know the parts that people in the public don't. They know I can be stubborn at times, and they know they push me, they challenge me. They are not yes men. So part of that is overcoming imposter syndrome that I left out is that, especially my friend from Austin, every time an opportunity came that I thought that was bigger than me and I wasn't ready, she would get angry and she said, "You better do it. You better take that position. You better go to that meeting. You better return that phone call because you don't know who you are." I think that having people like that in your life is so important, because one thing about imposter syndrome is that sometimes people will tell you, "Oh my God, you're talented in this area," or "You're so great," but your imposter syndrome, you're like, "I don't know what they're talking about." The problem is you're so gifted in that one particular area that it comes natural to you, and you view it as ordinary, while people on the outside of you know that it's not common to them. So they see how amazing that you are, but it's natural to you. So you need people in your life that can hold a mirror up to you and say, "Look, I know you very well." Not like the people on Facebook. I actually know you, and I'm telling you, you're exceptional in this area, right? They make you believe it, but you also have to give those same people the permission to call you out when they need to, and be vulnerable enough to listen to. I have three of those people in my life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. There's certain moves I've done with Jack and Associates, certain deals that I've been able to sign. I wouldn't even went to the meeting if it wasn't for my friend pushing me, because I thought, I can't sit in the room with these people. By the time I took the Holy Rosary opportunity, if that Holy Rosary opportunity would have been presented to me a year earlier, I wouldn't have even took it, because I wouldn't thought I could have done it. But it's because of the people I have in my life that said, you don't understand. I already see you at a level beyond what the level you're scared to walk into. And they're not lying because they know me well enough, but they hold that mirror up to me. So, yes, having those people in your life.
Wow. So how do you take all the things that you've learned and transfer that into mentorship? How do you do that?
So overcoming imposter syndrome has helped me get to a place to where I can do that, because for so long, you see, people will come to me because they're interested in, they have a business idea that they want to start. Well, I can do that all day long. I can stop whatever I'm doing and I can tell you the 5 ways to get there. But sometimes people will come up to me and say, "Oh, hey, I want to be mentored," or I'm like, why from me? Right. So I finally gotten to a place where I understand, and that I know that that's a purpose I have greater than just simply helping people start businesses. Right. It's another component. So honestly, just putting myself in a position to share. So one of the groups of people that I do mentor through various nonprofit efforts are young Black youth. Okay. Especially in their teenage years. So what got me on the map at first, before I started anything, I started a nonprofit when I was getting my master's degree, the Youth Literacy Foundation of Acadiana. That's what I became known for in the city, and I started getting awards for. It's after that I started the consulting business, right? But the reason why I wanted to help young Black youth, specifically young Black men in their teenage years, is that I was realizing that I identify with them, and pouring into them was pouring into me. I was pouring into a hole that formed because my dad wasn't there, right? So there's something about young Black men that I've always wanted to pour into and to mentor. And that's why I go after, that's why I've always targeted them to mentor. So Through the nonprofit that I created, which is still a nonprofit now, I'm able to do that. I'm also volunteer for a variety of different organizations, Macomb Visa, Neighborhood Coterie, other organizations where the target is youth in underserved communities. We teach them financial literacy, we teach them entrepreneurship, but that's just the things in the curriculum that we're delivering. But it also creates an opportunity to where we can talk to them about non-entrepreneurial things, right? We can just tell them how to carry themselves, how to overcome their own imposter syndrome, how to believe in themselves, how to strive for more than what they've been exposed to, and things like that. So that's how I roll it into mentorship for young people. I am now in a place to where a mentor. I'm 34. I'm now in a place to where you could say I mentor people in their 20s, and even people like my age. But I had to get to a place to where, okay, I'm a mentor to adults too. I think I'm just getting to a place where I'm owning that. I've definitely been a mentor to young people for a while now.
So what advice would you give to some leaders who are thinking about getting involved into their community, but are unsure about how to go about it and really finding something that they're really passionate about?
No, absolutely. So a couple of different things. So if start whatever it is that you that's important to you or that you're interested in or you're passionate about, start there. So what I did was reading. I read a lot as a child. I played a lot of video games, but I read a lot. My grandmother used to watch me in the summertime when my mom was at work, and she didn't have cable. So the only thing she watched was The Price is Right and The Young and the Restless. And there's so much Victor Newman I could take. So I would read books. So reading books at an early age helped me with speaking, and my vocabulary was always good at an early age and stuff like that. So I knew I wanted to give back to young Black youth. I just didn't know what. So I was like, reading helped me out. I think it increased my social emotional intelligence. So I started reading to youth. But I started volunteering at the United Way, the Readers Program. So on Wednesdays, my days off, I'd go and read through the United Way Readers Program at Truman Elementary and all these other schools, which led to me creating a nonprofit where I could get some funding to create the program the way I wanted it to. So I took something I was interested in, and then I just gave that to the youth. And I started with an already established organization. But once I started doing that, people just started seeing what I was doing. And the very fact that somebody in their 20s was taking time out to do it put me on other people's radar. So I just started volunteering. People seeing that I was sincere. I didn't start doing it for recognition. And they seen I was passionate about it. So that was enough for them to bring me into their fold. Right. So once I'm in their fold, then they're like, you're good at this. And then I just started being elevated. Then it was like, okay, well, come do this. And then come do that. And then once they see your level of passion, I just kept getting elevated from that standpoint. There's a lot of need out there in the community. So if you just put yourself in those environments, that helps. But I'd be remiss if I didn't name this. There are people that I believe serves as gateways into the community. Whenever I was doing that, I was already meeting people naturally. But one of my good friends, the woman I mentioned, Skyra, she was already plugged in Lafayette. So we crossed paths and we met, and I walked into her network of people, community leaders. So she seen what I was doing and what I was about. So she was like, hey, I need you to go meet with this person, this person, this person, and this person. And then I started meeting with these people. And then they were able to see my passion. They were able to see my drive. But that's because she serves as a gateway and a connector for me. So I say all that to say this: if there's anybody listening to this that want to get involved in various efforts in Acadiana, like I know a lot of people, right? So whatever it is that you're passionate about, I probably can name 2 or 3 people that you can connect with. And there's always some event going on Saturday mornings or Thursday evenings, whether it's the youth or you want to help out towards homelessness or feeding the hungry, or it doesn't matter, right? I'm well connected with a lot of nonprofits. You just can find those people that serve as those gatekeepers in your community. There's also several organizations as well for young professionals or professionals of any age that you can join. And even if you're not sure where you fit, you play the role of spectator, go fill it out and identify your place. So there's a couple of things that you can do.
That's so good. And one of the projects that I'm excited about that you're working on is to Holy Rosary Restoration Project. And for many people in the audience may not know, I actually went to Holy Family Catholic School. So from pre-K all the way through 8th grade, and where we played basketball during the school year was Holy Rosary at the gym.
Right.
And a lot of times we'd, play around the home that's there, and I used to call it the mansion. But yeah, we'll play around there. So tell us a little bit about that project. What's the goal, and ultimately, what is the hope for in the end?
Sure. So for those of you who are quite familiar with that project, so Holy Rosary started out as a boarding school for African American women to attend high school. It was first built in 1913. Father Keller came to Acadiana and he bought some property, which was that whole block, and he crossed paths with nuns from the Holy Order out of New Orleans, which is the second oldest order of African American nuns in the country. So he built this 3-story building where those African American women were able to come and get educated at a time where it was illegal to educate African Americans in anything beyond the basics what they would need to perform their labor, right? But this school was teaching them mathematics and science and things like that. So you have all these African American women that attended the school until in the middle 1900s, it became co-ed, and men were able to start coming, and a lot of prominent community figures or graduates of Holy Rosary Redevelopment. Well, the building fell into significant disrepair in 1993, and the school closed down. And so the building has been falling apart ever since. And there's been several different efforts to try to restore it and redevelop it. Well, over the last couple of years, the organization was able to obtain funding, both from the federal funding and state funding, a good bit of it. So they're able to put a plan in place. I came on board last year. So we're redeveloping the building. It's not going to be redeveloped into a school, but it's going to be redeveloped into a multi-use building that's going to include a couple of things. So number one, there's going to be a healthcare component there. So there is a hospital that we're talking to right now. I can't divulge too much information, but we're optimistic that we'll land this hospital. And if not, there's another hospital that we can get that will be on the second floor, because that community doesn't have any healthcare there, right? So I have to pull a report of all the healthcare facilities in that neighborhood, and there's just simply not many there. So that building on the first floor will have a healthcare component to it, number one. Number two, they're restoring the chapel. People will be able to do weddings there again and have various functions there. Number three, there's going to be an African American history museum there. So the artifacts have already been donated. Creole Inc. already has the artifacts there. So there's going to be a African American history museum either on the second or the third floor. There's going to be a 50-stage performing arts theater in the building. Once again, the stage, the seating, the lighting has already been donated. It's sitting in a storage in Broussard. It's just waiting on the building to be ready for it, so that we'll be able to teach the youth the performing arts. There's several Zydeco musicians and playwrights and things like that in the community that'll be able to come and do that. So those are the things that we know that's going to be there. We still have some additional space. We're going to undergo a strategic plan to see what else can be there. We'll get input from the community, because one thing that we want to do is want to make sure that it's sustainable to where we don't have to rely on grant funding to keep the lights on once the building is established. So that's the plan for the 3-story building. However, the whole area, all the way to Louisiana Avenue, and all those other buildings, we're looking to basically redevelop as well. And to have multiple commercial tenants and things like that in there. Of course, just the 3-story project is the most important.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an amazing project. And how can people follow the progress of what's happening? Where can they find it?
So we have a Facebook page. And if you type in Holy Rosary Redevelopment, you should see it. The profile pic is a picture of the building. The website, there is a website right now. It's old, but we have a new website being built, which should be ready next week. So they'll be able to follow us on there. But I go in and I post. I need to get better about posting more regularly on there. But I do post updates of where we are in the project. So We just hit a milestone. We removed all the asbestos and hazardous material out of the building, so the building has a clean bill of health, and we removed all the debris from the first floor. So we're moving on to the second phase, which is stabilization, further stabilization, and shoring up the structure to make sure that while the internal demolition is taking place, which is the next phase, that the building keeps its integrity and doesn't collapse or anything like that.
Awesome. So what's next for Corey Jack?
Oh man, I have some things. Might as well say I have some things in the works. So I wear the two major hats. Of course, is the Jack and Associates, the Holy Rosary Project, but the Death to Comfort Zones brand is coming out. I have another meeting with a patent and trademark attorney this week, and we're looking to create a movement for the very thing we talked about, imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
I want to attack it for other millennial leaders and kids. I want to attack imposter syndrome because everybody I talk to our age suffers from it. I'm still overcoming it. Yeah. Death to Comfort Zones, the movement is going to address that. So I have some things up my sleeve in that regard. So look for material coming out, just helping other young professionals try to reach their next level.
That's awesome. I can't wait till all of that comes out. I tell you, you're speaking directly to me whenever you talk about imposter syndrome, because I myself, for many, many years, have been dealing with that as well. And I know the challenge that it brings to a person, but I also know it takes you just really just being focused, intentional about saying, look, this voice that I'm hearing, I'm not listening to it. I'm going to keep pressing forward. No, it doesn't matter how nervous I am. Even this podcast right now, I'm saying death to comfort zone. So I'm waiting. I can't wait till I can put something branded on here for you, my brother, that says death to comfort zones, sponsored by Corey Jack and Associates. But no, man, go ahead.
I just wanted to leave you with this. Speaking of death to comfort zones, I just heard something from someone that was real powerful. They said, tell your story. Someone else's deliverance is in your mouth. That helps me get past that. I'm nobody. No, you can say something that can change somebody else's life. So tell your story.
Wow. Wow. I think that's the best way to end it right there, Corey. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. And we appreciate you being a part of the Leadership Push family. God bless.
Thank you for having me. Bye.